we can make it spin, will create electromagnetic energy. The gravity will be completely neutralized, and this will be able to fly.
You've probably heard wild stories about UFOs and strange objects, but this one is real. A fragment known as the Buga Sphere was placed under Google's quantum computer. What it revealed wasn't data, numbers, or code. It was something far darker, something no one expected. So, what exactly did the Buga Sphere reveal during its first scan? The quantum unveiling. A machine so advanced, it doesn't just observe matter, it exposes the timeline carved within it. Google's quantum core, one of the most advanced computers on the planet, was turned toward a fragment of a mysterious object known as the Buga Sphere. What followed wasn't a routine scan. It was a reconstruction, atom by atom, layer by layer, of everything that fragment had been through since the moment it was created. The researchers expected raw numbers, maybe complex chemical data. Instead, what appeared on their screens felt like a message, not a random jumble of information, not the kind of noise you'd expect from an unknown object, but patterns that carried intent. The unsettling part? It seemed to have been waiting for us, as if the Buga Sphere wasn't discovered by chance but designed to be uncovered only when our technology finally caught up. The fragment structure added to the mystery. Its outer shell was seamless. No welds, no joins, nothing that hinted at how it was built. Under powerful microscopes, the material looked like a continuous atomic lattice, a surface grown rather than manufactured. That alone defied everything we know about metallurgy. But the real shock lay inside. At its core was a dense network of channels that looked almost biological, like the branching of neurons inside a brain. These channels weren't inert. They responded to their surroundings. Subtle shifts in air, temperature, even the presence of living organisms nearby. This wasn't a lump of metal. It behaved like a sensor, a living system engineered to notice and record. And then there were the markings. Tiny symbols etched into its central core. They weren't scratches or random decoration. They followed repeating patterns, deliberate arrangements. Linguists and mathematicians found no direct match with human writing, yet the structure was undeniable. It suggested a kind of universal script, something meant to be read by any intelligence capable of recognizing logic and order. If the object was meant to communicate, then its timing was precise. The quantum scan pulled out sequences aligned with astronomical cycles, movements of distant planets that we've only just mapped in the past decade. The precision was chilling. Someone or something embedded coordinates into this object long before we had the tools to recognize them. The implication was clear. The Buga Sphere wasn't just built to sit silently. It carried a message, a memory, maybe even instructions. But it also carried a presence, the sense that we were never the ones in control of this discovery, that its creators had anticipated the moment humans would finally be able to decode it. A machine that sees the stars. When the analysis of the Buga Sphere fragment moved past its astronomical cycles, researchers uncovered something even more unsettling: the way the fragment handled information. Unlike our computers, which store data on chips or magnetic drives, this object used a system we could barely comprehend. Its architecture suggested holographic storage, three-dimensional maps encoded at a quantum level. Instead of stacking data like pages in a book, it layered them across dimensions, allowing entire libraries of information to exist in the space no bigger than a pebble. What shocked the research team even more was the realization that this information wasn't static. It behaved as though linked to something else, something not here on Earth. The evidence suggested entanglement. In simple terms, whatever was stored inside the Buga Sphere might also exist somewhere else, mirrored in real time across unfathomable distances. A change in one location would be reflected instantly in another, as if the fragment was only a single node in a vast cosmic system. The implications of this discovery rattled even the most seasoned scientists. If the Buga Sphere was indeed one of many, then Earth had been plugged into a network without our knowledge. That meant someone, or something, was capable of monitoring conditions here, while simultaneously sharing that data across the universe. It wasn't simply a device built to hold knowledge. It was an eye, quietly open, silently watching. As the quantum processors dug deeper, another surprise emerged. What had first appeared to be background noise resolved into intricate fractal sequences. These weren't random. They matched patterns found in the universe's own background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang itself. To see that kind of fingerprint inside an artifact was baffling. It meant whoever built this object had not only access to cosmic-scale knowledge, but also the ability to embed it into technology. Our most advanced telescopes had only recently begun to glimpse these details, yet here they were, waiting in a metallic sphere that had landed in Columbia. The discovery reframed everything. This wasn't just about alien engineering. It was about perspective. The Buga Sphere seemed to carry within it echoes of universal history, like a condensed record of time written in mathematical form. Its purpose was unknown, but its presence implied something staggering, that intelligence existed somewhere capable of recording, compressing, and transporting the very structure of the cosmos itself. And then came the physical design. Engineers studying the fragment under electron microscopes found no signs of manufacturing as we understand it. No seams, no joints, no welding. Instead, it looked as though the sphere had grown into being, its surface forming a perfect atomic lattice with flawless continuity. Inside, a branching network resembled the complexity of organic tissue, yet responded dynamically to its surroundings. It blurred the line between machine and organism, as if whoever built it saw no distinction between technology and biology. At the center of this network lay etched markings, symbols, repeated in structured sequences. They weren't part of any known language, yet they carried deliberate order. Some appeared mathematically significant, others mirrored geometric motifs seen in ancient human cultures, though no direct connection could be proven. To the scientists, the implication was chilling. It was as if the creators had devised a universal grammar, one that any intelligence, human or otherwise, could eventually recognize. The more layers they uncovered, the clearer the message became. The Buga Sphere wasn't a passive object. It was deliberate, intentional, and astonishingly advanced. But every discovery carried a shadow. Was this a tool for exploration, meant to guide civilizations forward? Was it a silent recorder, gathering data about every world it touched? Or was it something darker, a dormant system that waits for specific conditions before revealing its true function? The truth is, the fragment left us with more questions than answers. We know it can sense. We know it can store. We know it carries astronomical fingerprints and universal echoes. But why it was here and why now remains unknown. The one certainty is that its discovery has already changed us. It shattered the illusion that human technology is at the cutting edge of possibility. It forced us to confront a reality where other intelligences may be centuries, even millennia, ahead of us. And it left us with a terrifying thought. If the Buga Sphere has been observing, transmitting, and recording, then whoever placed it here already knows us better than we know ourselves. And perhaps they've been waiting for this very moment, for us to finally notice. Entangled across the cosmos. Scientists pressed the quantum scan into deeper layers, expecting only echoes of what was known. What surfaced instead rewrote their silence. Hidden within the fragment's data streams were patterns, not random noise, not static, but fractals, self-repeating mathematical shapes that carried an almost hypnotic precision. At first, the researchers thought it was interference from their own instruments. But when they checked, double-checked, and tested again, the results stayed the same. The Buga Sphere contained fractals that mirrored the oldest signal in the universe, the faint glow of the Big Bang. This glow, known as the cosmic microwave background, is the radiation left over from the birth of the cosmos, a whisper of light that has traveled for nearly 14 billion years. Our most advanced telescopes, like the Planck satellite and the James Webb, have only recently begun mapping its tiny fluctuations. Yet somehow, inside a fragment of metal found on Earth, those very same fluctuations appeared, reproduced with astonishing accuracy. It was like finding the fingerprint of the universe etched into a machine. To grasp the scale of this, imagine trying to record the vibrations of an ocean wave. But not just the wave you can see, the wave that happened billions of years ago at the moment the ocean itself was born. That's what these patterns represented. Whoever, or whatever, encoded them had access to knowledge not only beyond Earth, but beyond time as we know it. The researchers sat with an uncomfortable realization. This wasn't simply an advanced device. It was an archive that contained information about the universe's infancy. Our science is only now beginning to piece together that history, yet here was a fragment suggesting someone else had mapped it long before us. Some of the patterns matched what modern cosmology already accepts: the slight temperature variations, the anisotropies that tell us how galaxies first formed. But other details went further. Subtleties no human instrument has yet measured, predictions that current theories can't fully explain. If those predictions prove correct, the Buga Sphere doesn't just confirm our understanding of the universe. It extends it, possibly by centuries. This left the team with two possible interpretations, both unsettling. The first, the sphere's creators were so advanced that they could observe the universe at its earliest state directly, capturing information at a resolution we can't dream of. To them, the Big Bang wasn't a mystery, it was a data set. The second, the Buga Sphere isn't just recording knowledge. It may be carrying instructions, formulas, or even simulations, compressed into fractals, waiting for the right minds to decode them. In that sense, the patterns might not just represent the universe's structure. They could recreate it, like blueprints for reality itself. One physicist compared it to stumbling upon a Rosetta Stone, not for language, but for existence. The fractals weren't mere decoration. They carried meaning. Information layered so deeply that the more you magnified them, the more details appeared. No matter how far the scan went, the data seemed endless, spiraling inward like an infinite mirror. For the research team, the emotional weight was overwhelming. To touch information embedded in the very birth of the cosmos was like standing on sacred ground, and yet the terror lingered. Why would someone place such knowledge inside an object on Earth? Why embed it in a machine that behaves as though it was waiting for us? Patterns, written in the universe. When scientists first examined the Buga Sphere fragment under high-powered microscopes, they expected to find the usual hallmarks of construction: weld lines, stress points, or at least evidence of casting. But the closer they looked, the more unsettling the discovery became. The surface was flawless, not smooth in the way of polished steel, but flawless in the literal sense. No breaks, no seams, no sign that separate pieces had ever been joined. The material formed a continuous lattice of atoms, as if it hadn't been built at all, but grown. This realization sent shockwaves through the team. In every human method of manufacturing, from ancient blacksmithing to modern 3D printing, assembly leaves traces. The Buga Sphere left none. To imagine what this means, picture holding a hollow sphere of metal in your hands, but knowing it has no start point, no weld, no edge, just an unbroken structure. To us, this borders on impossible. Yet here it was, sitting under the microscope, mocking our assumptions about what can and cannot be made. The sphere's interior was even stranger. Probes revealed a dense maze of channels running through its core. At first, they looked like fiber optic cables, thin pathways for light or energy. But the deeper scans showed something more organic. The branching patterns resembled neural tissue, like the interconnected web of a living brain. And these weren't inert structures, they were active. When exposed to changes in temperature, air composition, or even the proximity of living organisms, the channels pulsed faintly, carrying signals in ways the scientists couldn't fully trace. The fragment wasn't just a passive object, it was responsive. aware, in some limited sense, of its environment. This presented a chilling idea. The Buga Sphere may not simply record information. It might experience it. At the very heart of the fragment, researchers uncovered something even more baffling: a compact core, etched with markings too precise to be random. They weren't scratches or natural fractures. They formed repeating sequences, symbols arranged with mathematical intent. No known alphabet matched them, yet the patterns followed rules: balance, symmetry, and recurrence. They looked less like language and more like code. The idea took hold that this core might be an index, a kind of master key to everything the sphere contains. If the outer shell was the vault and the inner channels the circuitry, then these markings could be the lock, the interface between us and the intelligence that created it. But the strangeness didn't end there. The markings seemed to shift subtly, depending on the angle of observation. Under some lighting, faint secondary patterns appeared, like ghostly layers beneath the main symbols. This hinted at multiple levels of meaning, as if the language itself was dimensional, designed to reveal more the deeper one looked. The implications were staggering. This wasn't the work of trial and error engineering. It was design operating on principles humans haven't yet begun to grasp. A seamless exterior, an interior that mimicked living systems, and a symbolic core that seemed equal parts mathematics and art. The researchers struggled to categorize what they were seeing. Was the Buga Sphere a machine built with unimaginable precision? Or was it something closer to a hybrid, technology infused with qualities we associate with biology? In human science, those categories are separate. Living things grow, machines are assembled. The fragment blurred that line completely. One theorist suggested that the Buga Sphere might not have been manufactured at all, but cultivated, the way we might grow crystals in a lab. Except this was no simple crystal. It carried circuits, storage, and a written code etched into its heart. If true, it meant the creators had discovered a way to grow technology as effortlessly as nature grows a tree. This perspective reframed everything. The object wasn't just advanced, it was alien in the truest sense of the word, built on principles so far outside our own that it challenged the very definition of technology. The sphere's impossible anatomy. When the quantum readout was finally pieced together, the data didn't reveal a single meaning. Instead, it fractured into possibilities, 3 disturbing interpretations that each carried consequences far beyond what humanity is prepared to face. The first interpretation was the most alluring, that the Buga Sphere holds a map. But this wasn't a map in the ordinary sense of lines and symbols on paper. The sequences suggested instructions, like coordinates threaded through space and time. If followed, they might lead to locations we cannot yet imagine, perhaps other worlds, perhaps entirely different dimensions of existence. A map of this kind would be both a promise and a trap. On one hand, it could guide us towards civilizations more advanced than our own, or to resources and knowledge capable of reshaping human history. On the other, it could deliver us straight into dangers we cannot comprehend, territories guarded, or destinations meant to test whether we should have come at all. The question haunted the researchers. If this really is a path, then who laid it out, and why now? The second interpretation was less thrilling, but even heavier in its implications. The data could be read as a record, a meticulous logbook of Earth itself. The information seemed layered in ways that suggested long-term observation. Not just weather patterns or surface changes, but deeper markers. Climate shifts stretching back millennia, the rise and fall of ecosystems, even the possibility of biological detail preserved in astonishing resolution. If this is true, then the Buga Sphere is not pointing us outward, but turning the mirror back on us. It may be an archive of our planet's deep history, one we ourselves could never compile with such accuracy. This would mean Earth has been studied for far longer than we realized, by an intelligence with patience on geological scales. Was it a study of our world for scientific purposes? A warning about environmental collapse? Or worse, a monitoring system, watching to see whether humanity passes or fails some unspoken test. But it was the third interpretation that froze even the most rational minds. Some sequences implied the Buga Sphere is not a record or a guide at all. It is a trigger, a dormant mechanism waiting for the right alignment, the right cosmic conditions to activate. No one knows what it would trigger or how, but the thought of holding such a device terrified the team. The possibility that it is programmed to awaken only under specific circumstances suggests planning far beyond human scales of time. It could be linked to astronomical cycles or to events we haven't yet experienced. Perhaps a warning system, perhaps an activation switch for something larger, something spread across the stars. The haunting part is that such a function would mean the Buga Sphere is not finished. It is waiting, and if it is waiting, then its purpose is not passive curiosity. It has intent. Each of these interpretations, map, record, or trigger, shakes the ground beneath us. But what unsettled the researchers most was that they could not choose between them. The data was layered, overlapping, almost as though it was designed to be read in multiple ways. The Buga Sphere seemed to be speaking in riddles, leaving us with possibilities instead of answers. That design choice raised an even deeper fear. If it was built to present multiple meanings, then maybe it was never meant to be understood fully. Maybe it was meant to test us, to see which path humanity would believe and what actions we would take as a result. The uncertainty was unbearable. The researchers realized they weren't just decoding an artifact. They were standing at the edge of a choice that could shape our species' future. And the terrifying part? There was no way to know if any choice was safe. 3 possible messages. The further the team pushed their investigation, the more they realized they weren't just decoding an object. They were confronting a purpose so vast, so foreign, it defied every framework they tried to fit it into. The Buga Sphere fragment wasn't simply technology. It wasn't simply memory. It was something else entirely. Something that carried intent woven into every layer. The problem was that no one could agree on what that intent actually was. When scientists looked at the data sequences, they found themselves circling back to the same unsettling conclusion. The sphere had been designed with patience. It was not tossed randomly into space, nor was it broken by accident. It felt deliberate, as though it had been planted, waiting until the moment humanity reached a level of understanding where it could finally be noticed. That in itself was terrifying, because it meant whoever created it not only knew we would one day exist, but also predicted when we would be capable of finding it. The idea that the Buga Sphere could anticipate us shattered the illusion of human independence. It suggested our timeline, our progress, may have been expected all along. And this raised the most disturbing thought yet. What if the fragment isn't here to teach us, or warn us, or guide us, but to measure us? That possibility changed everything. A map can be ignored, a record can be studied, even a trigger can be avoided. But a test? A test forces participation. The more the team considered it, the more the data looked like a mirror, reflecting back at us not what the universe is, but what we are capable of seeing. If that's true, then the Buga Sphere may not be about its content at all. Its true purpose may be about how humanity responds. The unsettling part is how carefully constructed the puzzle appears. Every discovery leads to another question. Every pattern opens another door, yet never gives a final answer. The design forces whoever studies it into an endless spiral of curiosity and uncertainty. That's not a flaw. That feels like intent. So what kind of intelligence would build such a device? To even imagine it, we have to abandon the way we think about invention. Human technology is built to solve problems. Faster transport, stronger tools, clearer communication. The Buga Sphere does none of those things. Instead, it provokes, confuses, unsettles. It almost seems alive in the way it resists being understood. This left the researchers with a grim realization. Perhaps the Buga Sphere was never meant to be solved. Perhaps its staggering purpose is to destabilize, to confront us with truths that rewrite the way we see ourselves in the universe. Consider the possibilities. If it is part of a network, then humanity is already inside it, whether we accept it or not. If it carries instructions, then we must choose whether to follow them. If it is waiting for conditions to align, then we may not have a choice at all. Each interpretation is heavy on its own. Together, they suggest a design so much larger than anything we can control that our role becomes painfully small. And yet, there was awe mixed with the fear. To be confronted with an artifact that challenges not just science, but the very concept of purpose, is to realize how limited our vision has been. We've measured intelligence by tools and machines. The Buga Sphere forces us to measure intelligence by foresight, by patience, by the ability to design something that can outlast civilizations and still deliver meaning billions of years later. A watched existence. For generations, we've gazed at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there, watching. The Buga Sphere fragment flipped that question upside down. The unsettling truth may not be whether there's life beyond Earth, but whether life beyond Earth has always been aware of us. The data didn't just whisper about distant planets or the birth of the universe. Some of it pointed inward, back at Earth, with detail too sharp to dismiss. The fragment appeared to carry traces of our world, cycles of atmosphere, shifts in oceans, subtle markers of changing climates. Even more chilling, some of the sequences suggested knowledge of human history itself. Not names or events, but unmistakable patterns tied to the rise and collapse of civilizations. It was as if the Buga Sphere had been keeping a diary of Earth, not for years, not for centuries, but possibly for millennia. If true, this meant our planet had never truly been isolated. From the first sparks of organized life to the age of technology, Earth may have been under constant observation. Every movement of its air, every shift in its seas, even the transformation of its forests and deserts, all captured, all stored, all possibly sent somewhere else. The fragment didn't look like a machine spying on us. It wasn't covered in lenses or antennas. Its silence made it even more unnerving. A device that observes without being noticed, recording without interruption, functioning with efficiency we can't reproduce. One researcher described it this way: "It's not just a machine you can turn off. It's a presence, one that doesn't need permission to exist." That presence carried implications far beyond surveillance. If Earth has been monitored, then someone, somewhere, has been receiving those records, which means we are not just being studied, we are being known. Our story may already be written into archives light years away, and the possibility grew darker the more they thought about it. What if the Buga Sphere wasn't alone? What if fragments like it had been scattered across countless worlds, forming a network of silent observers? If so, then humanity isn't unique. We would be just one entry in a cosmic ledger, one page among thousands, maybe millions, documenting the evolution of life across the universe. That idea is both humbling and terrifying. On one hand, it suggests we are part of something larger, connected to a web of worlds beyond our imagination. On the other, it strips away the sense of privacy humanity has always assumed. We are not unseen explorers carving out our future. We may have always been under watch, our actions quietly measured against standards we don't yet understand. The most unsettling part wasn't even the surveillance itself. It was the sense of timing. The fragment was discovered now, not 100 years ago, not in a future century. Right now, just as humanity is reaching the threshold of quantum science, just as we are taking our first steps toward the stars. It felt less like coincidence and more like choreography. That realization made some scientists question whether we've ever truly been in control of our progress. If the Buga Sphere has been here all along, observing silently, perhaps its discovery was part of the plan. Maybe we were meant to find it only when we had the tools to decode its patterns. If so, then even our awareness of being watched may have been expected. The implications stretch beyond science. They touch philosophy, politics, even identity. How do we see ourselves if we are not solitary beings in the cosmos, but subjects in someone else's long-running study? How do we define freedom if every choice has been quietly noted, every mistake filed away, every success added to an archive beyond our reach? Thank you for watching. The Buga Sphere has revealed only fragments of its truth, and the deeper story still waits. Stay curious, stay ready, and don't miss what comes next. Like this video, subscribe for future discoveries, and share it so others can question the unknown with us.